Everyone, it's Monday again, and it's getting close to Christmas, and so I thought maybe we could make a tag today. You can put these on your you can put them on your gifts, and then your recipients can save them and use them as ornaments on their own trees later. So this is a tag I made. So let's go through it and make our tag. I'm using DecoArt Texture Stucco, and I have a piece. I usually use palette paper when I do this, but I know not everyone is a painter and not everyone has palette paper, so I'm going to use a piece of an old craft sheet that I haven't, it was kind of messed up, so I cut it into pieces and I just kind of use it when I need just a little area. So I have a tag, and I have the Tim Holtz Stencil Holly Bough, and I'm using DecoArt's Traditions Sap Green, DecoArt's Traditions Burnt Red Light. If you don't have, this is wonderful paint, but if you don't have this paint, don't go out and buy any, because we're only going to use just a drop. Use whatever paint you have on hand. You can use any cheap acrylic paint. You can use the Tim Holtz paints. You can use Claudia Helmuth paints. You're only going to use a drop, so just whatever paint you have. Don't use oil paint, use acrylic. So I'm going to pull out some of my stucco, and you don't need very much at all. You really don't. This goes a long way. So I'm going to divide this, and the bottle is almost empty, so I'm just going to take the lid off, and I'm just going to pull out a tiny little bit, and I'm going to mix it in with my DecoArt stucco so that I can have a colored texture paste. Now you can use any texture paste that you want. You can use, I think Wendy Vecchi has some, Claudine has some. This is DecoArt. Traditions has texture medium. Just any modeling paste or texture medium that you prefer to use. Okay, I like DecoArt products, so that's what I'm using. So it takes very, very little to color your texture medium. So now I'm using sap green. It's a yellow green, and that's like enough for 40 of these. And I'm just going to take a little bit out of that puddle, and as my mentor Gabby Hunter likes to say, I'm going to sneak up on this part of my texture stucco, because I want a light green color. So you can always make something darker a lot easier than you can make something lighter. So I'm just putting a little bit of paint in there at a time until I get to the value of color, the darkness of color that I prefer. So there's what I'm looking for. And then in this, I'm going to make a darker green, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the rest of my green over into this puddle. So you see, you can mix your own colors. You're starting out with white, so you've already got your light in there, and you always, when you're mixing color, you always, never do it the other way around, but always mix dark into light, because if you don't, and you get too much dark, then you're going to end up with a mountain full of color by the time you're able to mix to the lightness that you desire, and then you're going to throw a whole lot away and waste. So there's our colors that we have in our stucco. I'm going to wipe off my palette knife. So now I'm going to pull this off just a little bit to the side, and I'm going to take my tag, and as you can see that I already used this and that there's some stain on here. That's okay. You want to clean your stencils, but you're really never ever going to get them totally clean from when you decide to use them. So if you want them totally clean, just look at them and don't use them. So I'm going to stick this down here, and I'm going to go ahead and take some blue painter's tape. I forgot to bring it over with me. And I'm going to anchor this to my craft sheet so that it's not really moving around while I'm spreading. I didn't really anchor my tag down, but I think by anchoring my stencil that will do pretty well, just as good. Now you can use a wider palette knife. I don't like to use plastic palette knives, but they certainly are serviceable if that's, you know, if you don't use them often and that's all you can find, or if you don't want to invest in a metal palette knife. But I really think that they're worth it because the stiffness that you get. So I'm going to use my very small palette knife that I use to mix colors with, and I'm going to put the brown on, and I'm just going to take a little bit at a time, and I'm going to go around and get my stems. And I'm putting it on, and I'm scraping it back off even. And you're going to get some in your leaf area. That's okay. This is not an exact science. It's okay. It says this is nature, and nature is not exact. Now I'm going to take my larger area palette knife, and I'm just going to come across here and make sure that I get all my excess off. Do this carefully. You don't want to bend your stencil. Okay, and the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm going to come back now with the green, and if there's less overage of the brown on there, then there's less likely of it to get muddied up. There's a little bit where I went over into the leaf, and if you can get to it, okay, but if not, don't worry too much about it. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start using my light green, and I'm going to push it into my leaf areas, but I'm not worrying about full coverage because I don't want full coverage. I just want it, a little bit of it in there. Put it in there sparingly. You know, you don't need to glom it in there. Get a little bit of it into each leaf area, but don't fully cover your leaf area with it. And you mostly want this color towards the tips of your leaves, because this is the lighter color and this is the highlight color of your leaves. Okay, and I've basically used most of that. And that's all good. Alright, now I'm going to come to my darker color here, and I'm going to finish out covering everything else now that it was in those stencils that has not been covered. Now there are a few dots here for berries that I had used red with first, but I'm just covering those up with the green because afterwards I'm going to come back and I'm going to use a liquid pearls and ruby red to do those berries. And if you go over some of your brown, that's okay too, because your brown's on in the front because you put that on first. So the green's not going to blot out the brown. It might color it a little bit, which is kind of cool. Whoops. Now, I just kind of went underneath my stencil, so be careful of that. So that's going to be an area that I'll need to clean off. Because I was kind of talking and working without holding down where I should have been holding down, so be careful of that. Don't fall into that. Okay, I've got all my space covered, just about. Okay, so now I'm going to pull this stencil straight up off of there. Get this out of the way. Okay, so there's my stencil, my stenciled holly. I'm going to put this over to the side for a few minutes to dry. And I'm going to take the time to clean off my stencil. Usually I take this into my bathroom on my bathroom counter, but I'll do it right here for you so you can see. I'm going to spray with water to get some of the chunky stuff off, because we used the texture medium. And I'm patting here. I try not to rub too much, but if you do need to rub a little bit, be so very careful that you don't get caught up in some of the intricate areas of your stencil, because you don't want to bend your stencil. So I've got a lot of it off, but not all of it. I'm going to pat that, and then I'm going to use hand sanitizer to finish up. I'm just going to take my fingers and very gently rub that over and allow that alcohol in it to work on the acrylic paint. If you have sore fingers like I do, it can be a little painful, so you might want to wear gloves. And as I said at the beginning of the video, you're not going to get every tiny little stain off, but you can get a lot of it off. It's very, very important to do this process as soon as possible. And you know, you've got the time anyway because you're waiting on your stucco to dry. And then you want to gently soak that off, wipe it off and soak it off. Like I said, very gently. Don't bend or pull on any of your areas of your stencil that are intricate. You're going to be working with both sides because it goes through. Now I bent my little spot right there, so you want to try not to do that. So then you have a pretty clean stencil. And if you would like to rinse that once more in water, you can do that, and then pat it dry. Okay, so let's work on some embellishments for our tag. So this is pretty easy. I took one of the enamel tags that said 25, and I put some glossy accents over it to accentuate it, and used brads, and I just poked holes through. Put that on there. And I took this die is this one, the Christmas Bells die from Tim Holtz, and I cut it out of grunge paper. I cut 2 each, and then I cut out, there it is, Ink Essentials tape sheets, foil tape sheets, by Rinker. So there's 6 in that package, and I used portions of 2 pieces. I have some and then I have some scraps left that I'll save for maybe another project. So you don't use, you won't use the whole package just doing this little tag. So then I cut it out of the foil tape, and make sure that you line up the right sides of this, because if you don't, then your holes are going to be a little off, and then you'll have to cut another one. So notice that this ring on top is not straight up, it goes this way. So you want to make sure that you have your foil tape, or that you have your grunge paper turned around properly so that that will match. So then I match up the ring and then pull off the rest and apply it. So there you have a silver bell, and you didn't have to paint or anything, nothing messy, and it's got nice reflection on it. And there we go, little fumbly fat fingers. Okay, so let's match that, and I always like to match this up first before I take the rest of the backing paper off, because it's just so much easier to get yourself started before you have to deal with the adhesiveness of this tape. Okay, so there's our silver bells, and then I cut the bow from that die. I cut it out of red cardstock, and then I took, there's creases in that bow, and I took fired brick and inked around the edges and around those creases for some definition. And then I took a craft knife and I put this on my little cutting mat, and I sliced along those creases. You don't have to slice those creases. You can just leave it, as creases. But again, I'm a lot about dimension, so I sliced through the creases in all of the loops. Careful you don't go to the end. Okay, I've got, oh, there's my lid. And then I opened that up a little bit and I just tore it. Don't tear it. Be more gentle than that. Make sure that your knife goes all the way through before you start pushing and pulling on it. Okay, and then you can bend your strips up a little bit. You can wrap it around a paintbrush or a pencil, so you can just manipulate your bows. That. Okay. Then I put the 2 of these together and I glued them with Scotch Quick Dry adhesive. You can use any adhesive you want. You can use dry adhesive, or you can use glossy accents, whichever, whatever you want to do. And I put a little bit down here on the grunge board too, for the areas where it's going to overlap the other bell. And then I offset them like that so that you can see that they're one over the other. And this takes a couple of minutes to set up, because it is on that metal tape, that foil tape. And clean my mess up here. And then I also put it on the back of the bow. And let's see, how did I glue that bow? You know, kind of about like that. Okay. So when that dries, then we have that ready to put on our tag. So let's see how we're doing. Okay, so this is pretty fast drying stuff. It's not totally dry. If you put it to your cheek or the back of your hand and you feel cold, then it's not quite dry, but it's dry enough. And I'm going to hit this with the heat gun real quick. Doesn't hurt it to do that. Heating it from the back heats that inside up that you can't quite get to. So now I'm going to start inking around the edges, and the first thing I'm going to do is Evergreen Bough Distress Ink, and I'm going to go around the edges of my tag. And then I'm also going to just skip around a little bit on inside just to get some of that stark manila color gone. Okay. Then next is Iced Spruce. And again, I'm going around the edge. Iced Spruce is a darker grayer green, and so that gives another edge, a definition to our edge. And again, just skip a little bit here and there and there. My third color is Vintage Photo. You can use any brown that you like, but I wanted a warm brown, and this has yellow in it, so it's a warm brown. So that's why I chose Vintage Photo. And I'm going to pick this up and get my edges. Make sure I get the edges of the paper. And then I'm going to come in, and I'm not going in as far as I did with the other two greens. This is just the edging and to give it some warmth. The brown gives warmth. And again, skip around here and there in the center. Okay. At this point, we can put our enamel tag on, and I'm just going to take the one from over here and put it on here, so just for demonstration purposes, so we don't have to wait for the enamel to dry on another one. So I'm going to put it up here on my cutting pad, and I can mark where I want it to go. I can do that with a pen, a pencil, however you want to do that. Okay. And then I'm going to take any piercer. I'm using my Tim Holtz piercer, but you can use any piercer at all, and then just, you know, pierce your holes for your brad. And poke those through and secure them to the back. Okay, so we've got that far. Now it's let's put a tag on. You know, you could make a nice ribbon with stain and things like that, but since this is going for a tag and it's supposed to kind of go on a package and then maybe later hang on a tree, I chose to use some twine. And in this case, I used Lawn Fawn's lawn trimmings in the Christmas colors. This is pretty cool too, because on this, you know, you can leave it on the card and just pull it out, roll it out, and it keeps it nice and neat. So I'm going to push this through that top tag hole. Now I'm not worried about coloring this tag hole because my my bow from my bells is pretty much going to cover that up, and I do that purposely. And you can make this as long as you need it to be. You know, this one that I made earlier is longer than this one, so I cut this a little short. This one could not be used very easily to tie around a Christmas tree, so if you get it too short, do it again. This one would be nice as a nice length. Okay, so now this is set up, and we can glue it right over that hole right there. So let's use this glue, and we can pretty well glue just about anywhere on the back of these bells, because it's all going on the tag, and my glue is stuck. Okay, so when that happens, I keep some straight pins, and that helps. Well, usually that helps, but sometimes it takes more than one. Okay, here we go. You don't want a whole lot of glue because you don't want it to ooze out. Even though it dries clearly, you can see it because it's kind of shiny. Okay, so let's now put this on there. And if you get any on the foil, you want to wipe that off immediately. You don't want it to dry on there. And you can embellish this with gems or perfect pearls or stickles, but I happen to have this little joy cut out of chipboard, and so I'm going to glue that right there to my bow. And I think I'm just going to put glue right here on the O, that area, and let the rest of it be loose on there, because that's really all we need. Okay, and I'm oozing out a little bit there. I got a little bit too much on there, so be careful of that. Don't put on too much glue. Okay, so we're almost finished. Now we can do you want to do these liquid pearls things last because they take a long time to dry. So now it comes to the greeting that you want on there. And you want to be able also to sign your name. So you might want to sign your name on the back. You can finish the back if you want to. I don't often, but you can. Or you can take a Sharpie or an Identipen. If I can find mine over here. Take a Sharpie or an Identipen. This is a finer line. This has a fine tip, but it's not as fine a line as the Sharpie. Not quite. The Sharpie Ultra Fine is just like a very thin ballpoint pen. And sign your name to it. And this is Merry Christmas from the Simple Sayings Tim Holtz stamp set. But sometimes I like to be snarky sometimes, and we all have friends that we can have fun with. So these are two things from Delusions, Christmas words, and she can get pretty snarky on here, and I really like this because I like to be a smart aleck sometimes. And I'll leave this sit here on the screen so that you can kind of see some of the phrases that are on there. And I think this is a lot of fun. But I chose two kind of neutral ones. One that says, "Dear Santa, is it too late to negotiate?" And one that says, "Go jingle your own blimmin' bells." And I thought that was cute for this because we've got bells on there. So we could put that on there. But before we do that, I wanted to do some stencils, or no, I'm sorry, some rub-ons from Tim Holtz's, what is it? Christmas time rub-ons. There's a black sheet and a white sheet in it. So I pulled out 3 of these that I wanted to use. So let's do that before we do anything else. And it comes with a little stick for you to do that with. So here's Jingle Bells, so I'm going to put this one right, I'm going to put it vertically right near the bells, and you just put it down and you rub it with the stick until it separates from the plastic backing. And so then you can decide which greeting you want to put on. And I think on this one I'm going to put "Go Jingle Your Own Bloomin' Bells," because that's just snarky enough for me. And I'm going to use pop-ups to put it on with, and I have them, someplace, because that kind of brings your attention when you lift it up off of the background. So let's see, I happen to have a sheet of small ones out here. I usually use some larger ones, so they're not quite so difficult for my little fingers, my fat little fingers, to deal with. Then I'm going to put one on each edge. So then we have a Christmas tag that doubles as a tag for your gift, and also an ornament that the recipient can keep and use again and again. And you can, if you have a lot of these you want to do, you can do them kind of assembly line fashion. You can line up your tags, and you can do all of your stenciling with your stucco all at once, and while they dry, then you can you can do all of your bells and put all of those together. By that time, when you go back, then it's time to put your rub-ons on, and you can put this embellishment on. You can do this while the stucco is drying. You can put your glossy accents on it. And oh, one more thing, we've got to put our liquid pearls berries on, because you want to you never want to isolate a color in a project. So our red right here is isolated. We've got green all over. We've got our brown, which is an accent, and it's all over. We've got black in our letter, our stamping, and in our joy. And so we've got red in our bow. So you've got to put your red, if you're going to use a color, you've got to use it in at least 3 places on your project, or on your piece. No less than 3. And always in an odd number. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas of red. So if I want to add any more, which I do because I want to get some in the bottom, then I have to make it 7 areas, not 6. There's 6, so I need 1 more spot, and that looks good down here. You can do all your liquid pearls at the end. You can do all your stamping all at once. You can do these in an assembly line fashion quite easily, and maybe get them all done. You could get 10 or 20 of these done in a morning, an afternoon, a couple hours probably to get going. And you have special tags and ornaments for your gifts. So we'll see each other again next week, a couple of days before Christmas, and have a good week. Bye.